Hello, YouTube. I didn't want to do this. I actually recorded a video about this already and deleted it because I don't like talking about drama. I think gossip, at least negative gossip, is just purely destructive in nature. But I'm seeing some things that need to be addressed before they get out of hand. So to start things off, a YouTuber that goes by the name of Bearing and his girlfriend Sugar Tits were doxxed. Their personal information appears on their Encyclopedia Dramatica page. For the record, I am strongly against doxing, and I define doxing as revealing otherwise unknown or hard to find personal information about someone who wants to remain anonymous online. As someone who wants to remain anonymous online for a variety of reasons, this is an issue which concerns me personally. The fact that people who share my opinions have lost their jobs and had their reputations ruined over it is very concerning to me. So whoever released Bearing and Sugar Tits information is absolute scum. And if there were true justice in the world, they would be facing prison time for their actions. With that out of the way, let me explain the situation so far to the best of my knowledge. For some background, Bearing recently had most of his videos taken down, or he took them down himself, I'm not sure which, because his avatar is copyrighted art. He claims that his bear was in fact drawn by Sugar Tits, for the most part, but even so, it's essentially the exact same bear, and is at least based on copyrighted material. Bearing has made money off videos featuring this material and has sold some merchandise using this material. Since he must have known for some time that he didn't own the rights to the bear, I don't really have any sympathy for him about that situation. When I made this account, I had a copyrighted image as my avatar, but I changed it when I started making videos because I knew something like what happened to Bearing could have happened to me. It was in the wake of all of Bearing's videos being taken down that he was doxxed. I became aware of the doxing situation when Logan released a screenshot of an email Bearing sent to someone named Danny Korcz. In this screenshot, Bearing appears to be letting Danny know that he has all Danny's personal information, which Logan and someone called Demotivator Opinions consider to be a threat. So from their perspective, Bearing is guilty of threatening to dox someone. Danny shortly thereafter set his YouTube account to private and seems to have gone into online hiding. Bearing's claim is that the context of that email is that Danny was one of the people responsible for his and Sugar Tits doxing, and thus the supposed threat was to let Danny know that what he did to Bearing could easily be done to him too. For the record, Bearing has not at this point released any of Danny's info, but let me also be clear that Danny deleting his account or making his account private is not proof of his guilt in any way. We don't know why he did that, but it could easily be he's afraid of Bearing's fans. What ruins the narrative of Logan, Demotivator Opinions, and others is that Danny's info was already publicly available on his About page, including his college email that Bearing was supposedly threatening to reveal. So based on my definition of doxing, Bearing could not be guilty of threatening to dox Danny because Danny himself has already made his info freely available to anyone who clicked his About page. Thanks to Bane666AU for discovering that little tidbit. The other thing that was going on is that supposedly several feminists online were having private conversations in which they were sharing Bearing's private info with each other and were questioning whether doxing is really a bad thing. We don't know if they got that info from Encyclopedia Dramatica or if these people were involved in releasing it in the first place, and we don't know which online feminists were the ones having these private conversations. In any case, this drama took another step when someone called Bearing Cab gave to Bearing some private messages he had received from Demotivator Opinions, also known as Tim. This caused Tim to lose trust in all anti-feminists for some reason, and it proved that Bearing Cab is not someone you can trust to not turn you in to the authorities if he thinks you've committed a crime. Anyway, in these private messages on the topic of Bearing and Sugar Tits doxing, Tim says, "I heard it was Danny, and I'm not sure who the other people were. Maybe Christy Winters. Now, Christy Winters, if you're not aware, is a prominent member of the YouTube feminist community and has a long-standing feud with Bering. You may remember her from that Reasonable Questions for Anti-SJWs video that I responded to, and she certainly has the motive to want to dox Bering. However, based on these private messages, in which Tim claims that he heard it was Danny, and he makes a complete guess about Christy Winters, so this is all just hearsay, Bering makes a video in which he claims it to be fact that Danny and Christy were behind his doxing. To me, since doxing is a seriously bad thing to do, accusing someone of doxing is also very serious. And unless Bering has more evidence than these chat logs, then he has made a very public accusation based on very poor evidence. And that's not okay. I get that Bering doesn't like these people and is probably upset about he and his girlfriend being doxed, but that doesn't excuse it. And if he's got hard evidence, then he should release it, because the evidence we've seen is ridiculously flimsy. And to be clear, Tim himself says that he doesn't know for certain who was behind the doxing. So how could Bering know if he's basing his information on what Tim has said? And if that's all there was to this, I'm not sure I'd be making this video. But now I'm seeing other people, specifically CharmingMan93, back up Bering's dubious claims about Christy Winters, when what everyone should be doing is calling Bering out on using flimsy evidence to accuse someone. In his latest video, CharmingMan93 tries to claim that because a mod on the Encyclopedia Dramatica page claims Christy supplied the information, there is now damning evidence of her guilt. This is despite the fact that the mod demonstrated an obvious bias against Christy Winters by referring to her as Christy Splinters, and despite the fact that the mod's source for that info could easily have been Bering's video where he claimed Christy was behind the doxing. What I'm worried about is that I'm starting to see a witch hunt mentality about this, where standards of evidence are getting lower and lower, and where people are willing to substitute confirmation bias with facts and reason. And since this is one of the biggest criticisms of social justice warriors, it really bothers me to see people acting this way when they're supposedly opposed to social justice warriors. So yeah, Christy Winters may be a dishonest, condescending hypocrite, but until there is hard, undeniable evidence that she is responsible for Bering and Sugar Tits doxing, she should be considered innocent of that act. It's horrible what happened to Bering and Sugar Tits. And I know and I understand that people feel the need to find and punish whoever is responsible. But that's no reason to abandon your principles and start acting like the people you claim to oppose. Anyway, that's about as much of this drama as I can handle in one video. I'll leave links to all the relevant YouTube channels involved in this case if you want to see everything I talked about in more detail. Until next time, I'm Positive Improvement, and I wish you all the best. Just one more thing. In the course of putting together this video, I discovered that Bering had actually deleted one of the relevant videos, or made private one of the relevant videos for this situation. And it's a video entitled Kevin Logan Gallantly White Knights for Danny Korcz. You can see here the tweet where Bering promoted this video, but the video is now listed as private. I don't know why Bering has done this, but this is the video in which Bering essentially admits to making what Kevin Logan describes as a threat against Danny Korcz. So I'm not sure why Bering did this. Perhaps it's because he realized he was making a threat and he didn't want that public, especially with his real name now attached to his channel. But I think that's a relevant piece of information, and it means I can't link to that video as part of the evidence for this discussion. Anyways, have a nice day.